June 1st, 2025, a summer night in Salem, Oregon, the night that should have been just another quiet Sunday. But what happened inside the St. Joseph shelter for the homeless would become one of the deadliest mass stabbings in Oregon's history. The St. Joseph shelter was a refuge for the city's vulnerable. On any given night, dozens of people gathered there for a warm meal and a bed, protected from the dangers of the street. But on this night, the dangers came from within. It was just after 7 p.m. when 31-year-old Thomas Herrera, a former resident of the shelter, walked through the front doors. Security cameras captured him wearing an oversized black hoodie, carrying a small drawstring bag. At first, nothing about his presence alarmed anyone. He was known to the staff, sometimes helped with cleaning shifts, and usually kept to himself. Witnesses said Thomas moved calmly, taking a seat in the communal dining hall as people lined up for dinner service. He exchanged a few quiet words with other residents, even helped pass out napkins, and no one noticed any sign of anger or agitation. But less than 15 minutes later, Thomas stood up abruptly, walked to his bag, and pulled out an 8-inch hunting knife. Without warning, he lunged toward a group of men playing cards at a table near the back wall. One victim was stabbed repeatedly in the chest before he could stand up, collapsing over the card table. Chaos erupted. People screamed, ducking behind chairs, trying to escape, but Thomas moved with terrifying purpose. He attacked another man near the kitchen serving line, stabbing him in the neck, then slashing at a third who tried to intervene. In less than 90 seconds, 5 men were on the ground, bleeding and in critical condition. One of them, a 62-year-old Army veteran who had survived 2 tours in Afghanistan, was fatally stabbed while trying to shield another resident. Staff tried to break up the attack, throwing chairs and even plates to distract Thomas, but he was unstoppable. He pushed through the cafeteria, swinging the knife wildly, striking anyone who came near him. At 7:19 p.m., a staff member managed to trigger the building's panic alarm, sending an automatic alert to police and emergency dispatchers. Witnesses said Thomas briefly paused, glanced around the room, then ran toward the side hallway where the showers and sleeping bunks were located. There, he stabbed 2 more people who had tried to hide in a bathroom stall. By the time Salem police arrived at 7:23 p.m., Thomas had moved back to the common area, breathing hard, the knife still in his hand. Police body camera footage would later show him turning toward the officers, drenched in blood, refusing commands to drop his weapon. Officers drew their firearms and ordered him to freeze. Thomas raised the knife as if to lunge again, and was shot twice in the chest by an officer at close range. He was taken to Salem General Hospital in critical condition, where he later died from his injuries. In total, 12 people were stabbed during the horrifying rampage. 3 died at the scene. 2 more would succumb to their wounds in the hospital. The victims included men between the ages of 28 and 67, many of them homeless veterans or longtime residents of the shelter, already struggling to rebuild their lives. In the hours after the attack, police began piecing together Thomas Herrera's troubled background. Court records showed he had a long history of mental health crises and had been arrested several times for minor assaults and trespassing, but no one could have predicted the scale of violence he would unleash that night. Investigators later found evidence that Thomas had been off his psychiatric medication for several months. Friends told authorities he believed other residents were out to poison him and had become increasingly paranoid. Despite these warning signs, no mental health follow-up had been conducted after he was discharged from a brief evaluation in March. The shelter, overwhelmed with grief, became a memorial in the days that followed. People left candles, handwritten notes, and flowers in front of the battered double doors. The names of the dead were read aloud at a vigil attended by more than 400 members of the community. Inside, the walls still showed marks where the chaos had erupted. Holes punched through drywall, broken window glass from people desperately trying to escape. The staff who had risked their lives to protect residents were hailed as heroes. But even they admitted it would be impossible to ever feel the same about working there again. Salem city officials promised funding to rebuild and strengthen security at the shelter, including metal detectors and more trained staff. But many questioned how a man so clearly struggling with his mental health could slip through the cracks again and again. Thomas Herrera's story raised painful questions about Oregon's mental health system, the desperate lack of resources, and the vulnerability of the unhoused population. Was there a moment where the tragedy could have been prevented. For the survivors, recovery will be long and painful, physically and emotionally. Some of them lost close friends they considered family. Others spoke of the deep fear they now carry. Even among those who once felt safe within the shelter walls, the St. Joseph shelter is slowly reopening, but under strict new rules and security checks. Counselors have been brought in, along with trauma specialists, to help residents find a way to heal. As we try to understand how this tragedy unfolded, one truth is unavoidable. A system meant to protect the vulnerable can itself become vulnerable when it fails to address the warning signs of untreated mental illness and despair. The night of June 1st in Salem will forever stand as a reminder of the thin line between hope and horror, and the price communities pay when help arrives too late. If this story moved you, and you want to hear more true, powerful stories that matter, please subscribe to this channel. Every subscription helps us keep shining a light on these critical events, honoring the victims, and holding up the truth. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Together, we can make sure these stories are told, remembered, and learned from, so they never have to be repeated. Thank you for watching.